In verse 20-26 of John chapter 17, we find the final section of Jesus' great high priestly prayer. This is a prayer for the whole body of disciples, both present and future, in the church. Jesus was not content just to pray for those who had heard him on that particular occasion. He broadened the prayer to extend those who would be his future followers. That includes you and me. Jesus prayed for us. Like the section we discussed in the last article, Jesus presents three petitions in this particular section. Through these three petitions, he prayed for the church of the entire New Testament age. Let's take a look at these petitions. First, he prays that we may all be one. Verse 20-23. Their unity was obviously waiting heavenly on Jesus. It's hard. He had already mentioned this subject in verse 11. Jesus here returned to that emphasis. He mentioned it twice in verse 22, twice in verse 21, once in verse 22, and again in verse 23. There are four primary aspects of oneness addressed here. The standards of oneness. The standard is the unity that exists between God the Father and the Son. In a sense, of course, the church unity can never mirror the divine unity perfectly. However, by addressing this standard, Jesus did not leave us free to treat our oneness influential. The means of oneness. Jesus prays that his fathers be one in us. Verse 21. Our relationship to be one another in manifestation of our relationship to God. Note also verse 23, I in them and thou in me. The glory of oneness. This is the key point in verse 22. Glory in Greek is doxa, D-O-X-A. This is one of the most important words in this whole prayer. It refers to the Father's glory, the Son's glory, and ultimately the church's glory. It's a word that means honor. Christians are honored by being made to reflect the glory, work, and love of God.